Come closer. The shadows have missed you, and tonight they have a new story to tell. Welcome to Scary Stories After Dark. The lights hummed, soft and sterile, a low mechanical lullaby that never stopped. The patient on the table twitched once, then fell still. His skin glistened like glass beneath the fluorescent glare. "Flatline," someone said. The monitor's single note stretched through the room. Long, endless, final. Then a nurse reached for the sheet. The sound snapped through the silence. The patient's chest lurched, bones flexing against muscle, like something beneath the skin had remembered how to breathe. His eyes shot open. Too wide, too bright. He screamed. Not a word, not pain. A shriek that rattled the instruments on the trays. A sound that didn't belong in anything human. The overhead lights flickered, and for a second, every shadow in the room looked alive. The man sat up in one jagged motion. His teeth gleamed wet and sharp, skin breaking out in blisters that hissed and bled. Someone shouted for security, but by then, the screaming had become contagious. He moved fast. So fast. Blood sprayed against the white curtain. The air smelled like copper and fever. The nurse who'd tried to help him was suddenly on the floor, throat open, eyes glassy with disbelief. The doctor's voice cracked.
Code blue, code blue.
But the alarms didn't mean what they used to. 5 floors above, Faye was signing her discharge papers. Her pulse still felt wrong. Fluttery, uneven. But the nurse said she'd be fine to go home. Just rest. Just fluids. She smiled faintly, fingers trembling around the pen. The ink wavered. Then the power blinked. Once. Twice. The lights dimmed to a sick yellow, and the sound of a distant alarm bled through the air vents. Faye froze. The nurse looked up. What was that? A low rumble rolled beneath their feet, followed by a sharp crack, like something heavy hitting the walls below. The intercom hissed to life.
Attention all personnel. Biocontainment protocol initiated. Please remain in your rooms.
The nurse's clipboard fell from her hands. Faye rose slowly, drawn to the window at the end of the hall. Down below, through the thin slats of the blinds, she saw movement, shapes jerking in the glow of emergency lights, shadows scattering, someone running, then disappearing. The elevator chimed once. and didn't open. She heard him before she saw him. Denny pounding up the stairwell, face slick with sweat. Faye, what's happening? He shook his head. His breathing came in short bursts. Something's wrong downstairs. They're locking it down. The lights above them flickered again. The hallway filled with a low moan. A feedback loop from the intercom twisting into something like a human wail. Then a sound that froze them both. Screaming, dozens of voices, jagged, echoing through the vents. It wasn't panic. It was hunger. A nurse down the hall stumbled out of a doorway, hand clamped over her mouth. They're saying it's spreading, she whispered. The ones who changed, they're screaming until their throats tear. Another noise crackled from the speakers. A voice, shaking, breathless, breaking between sobs.
5, 8, and 11. All personnel must evacuate.
If anyone can hear me,
All personnel must
they call them the Vociferous.
The word crawled into Faye's mind and stuck there, pulsing with the rhythm of her heartbeat. A wet thud shook the ceiling tiles above. Dust fell. Something moved in the dark vent. The light above them buzzed once more, then died completely. The only sound left was breathing. And far below, a scream that went on and on until it became the sound of the hospital itself. The sirens started like a heartbeat. One low thump through the walls, then another, faster. The sound filled the halls like a pulse the building couldn't hold. Faye pressed her hand to the window and watched the parking lot lights die one by one. The city beyond was already gone, the horizon swallowed by static. When she turned back, Denny was sealing the door with a hospital bed, his hands shaking. "Stay quiet," he whispered. They listened. Down the corridor, something heavy dragged itself across tile. The lights flickered again, catching only the shine of blood smearing the walls. Faye's chest ached. She still felt the tremor in her heart, that leftover sickness they couldn't name. It burned now, hot and rhythmic. They moved together, step by step, toward the stairwell. The doors hissed as the lockdown bolts sealed. Overhead, the intercom repeated its warning.
Containment breach. Contain.
Then sputtered into a chorus of screams. They reached the second-floor landing and froze. The sound below wasn't footsteps. It was breathing, fast, wet, human, but wrong. A nurse appeared in the half-light, face pale, uniform soaked. Her eyes were unfocused, darting from them to the door behind. "Please," she whispered. "Don't go down there. The stairwell shook. The woman screamed, thrown against the railing by something that came from below. Faye didn't see it clearly. Just hands, too many, skin stretched tight and slick. The nurse was gone before her voice stopped echoing. Denny yanked Faye upward, both of them gasping, running toward any light that didn't flicker. On the fourth floor, they met others. A handful of hospital staff gathered in the shadows of the break room. The generator hummed weakly, bathing their faces in sick yellow glow. Lana, a nurse with blood under her nails, was wrapping gauze around a trembling young man's arm. "Scrub tech," she muttered, not looking up. "He's bit but still breathing." The man, Eli, kept whispering to himself. "Didn't mean to..." didn't mean to. Beside them, an older doctor stood silent, sleeves rolled, eyes hollow. Dr. Holloway. The name badge hung sideways, smeared red. He looked at Faye and Denny like he already knew them. "Lockdown's a lie," he said quietly. "It isn't containment, it's quarantine." Then the lights flickered out again. Darkness crawled up the walls, swallowing the faint hum of machinery. The group stood still, holding their breath. From somewhere beyond the door came a single scream. Long, low, rising into a pitch that shattered the air. Eli whimpered. Lana covered his mouth. Dr. Holloway leaned closer to Faye. "That sound," he whispered. "That's what they call them now, the Vociferous." Something slammed into the break room door. Once, twice. Then the small rectangular window went black as something pressed against it from the other side. Something with teeth. Faye's pulse beat in her ears. She grabbed Denny's arm and together they ran toward the emergency stairwell. Behind them, the door gave way. They didn't look back. The screams chased them through the corridors. Each one a different voice, as if the entire hospital had learned how to scream at once. The stairwell was silent except for the sound of their feet and the occasional flicker of light dying overhead. Each floor they passed felt emptier than the last. Signs hanging crooked, paper cups rolling in the dark. Faye clutched the railing as they descended. The air grew colder, heavier, like the building itself was exhaling. When they reached the basement level, the temperature dropped hard enough for her breath to mist. "Why here?" Denny murmured. Dr. Holloway's voice was a whisper behind them. "Only place with locking doors thick enough to hold." Lana and Eli followed, the boy limping, skin pale. His bitten arm throbbed beneath the bandage. They moved fast, every sound stretching long in the tunnels below. The squeak of shoes, the hum of dying electricity. The morgue doors loomed ahead, stainless steel catching flashes of red light. Holloway swiped his keycard. The mechanism groaned before letting them in. Inside, the air was still. Too still. Rows of cold drawers lined the walls, half pulled open. The emergency lights cast everything in surgical crimson. Eli whispered, "Feels wrong." Faye nodded. She could smell disinfectant and copper and something sweet decaying underneath. They started searching for supplies. Anything sharp, anything they could barricade with. Denny found a crowbar beside an overturned gurney. Lana checked the cabinets. Then came the noise. A faint, rhythmic thump from behind the far wall. Then another. It wasn't mechanical. It sounded like fists. Eli moved first, drawn by the sound. "Hello? Someone in there?" "Don't," Faye whispered. He reached the steel drawers and placed his hand on one. It was vibrating. His voice shook. "They might be alive." He pulled. The drawer screeched open. A body bag lay inside, zipped to the chin. Lana stepped closer, her flashlight trembling. "We can't just..." The bag moved. A muffled scream came from inside, then silence. The zipper twitched upward an inch. Denny backed away. "Eli, leave it." but Eli leaned in. "Hang on, I've got you." The zipper burst open. Something lunged out, all claws and teeth and boiling skin. Eli barely had time to scream before it sank its mouth into his throat. Blood splattered across the tile. Faye pulled Lana back, the two of them stumbling into the wall. The creature's eyes reflected red in the light. Jagged, glassy, no longer human, it screamed that same impossible pitch that tore through the vents above. Denny swung the crowbar, catching it across the jaw. Bone cracked, but the thing didn't fall. It only turned and lunged again. Holloway grabbed an oxygen tank, hurled it. The impact sent the monster crashing against the cold drawers. It twitched once, twice, then stilled. The group stood panting, trembling, the smell of blood thick in the air. Lana sank to her knees beside Eli's body. He was just a kid. Holloway's gaze stayed on the creature's twitching fingers. "It's learning faster," he muttered. "Everyone that turns screams louder than the last." The lights flickered once more, plunging them into momentary darkness. When they came back, the table where the creature had fallen was empty. They ran until their lungs burned, every step echoing against the cold concrete. The tunnels bled upward into long corridors where ceiling lights hummed and died one by one, leaving a trail of static darkness behind them. By the time they reached the radiology wing, the hospital had fallen quiet again. Too quiet. Only the generator's hum vibrated through the walls, a mechanical heartbeat pulsing under the surface. Dr. Holloway led them through double doors that swung slowly, their hinges screeching. "Lead-lined rooms," he murmured. "If the vents spread the infection, this level might give us a few minutes." Faye nodded, gripping the crowbar Denny handed her. The metal felt like ice in her hand. Every breath hurt now, her chest burned as if something inside her was alive and trying to move. She didn't say it. She couldn't. The radiology room was a ghost of routine. X-ray films still hung on the light panels, patient files scattered across the counters. The lights flickered weakly, bathing everything in blue. Lana stood near a board covered in translucent skeletal scans. One by one, the images began to shimmer. Tiny movements where there should be none. "Do you see that?" she whispered. Faye turned. The skeleton on the left flexed its hand. Another twisted its neck. The images flickered faster until the light behind them burst, plunging the room into darkness. A sound rippled through the vents. A faint, wet clicking, almost curious. Then the whispering began. It came from the speakers, soft and glitching. Words in the same distorted voice they'd heard earlier.
Vociferous, spreading, heartbeats elevated.
Denny slammed the intercom switch. "Shut up." The whisper stopped. They waited. Then the glass wall between the scanning bay and the hall cracked. A single hand pressed against the other side. Thin, trembling fingers blackened like charcoal. The creature's reflection shimmered in the window before its face appeared. Its jaw was wrong. Too wide, teeth slick and glistening. Blood ran down the inside of the glass. "Run," Faye breathed. The glass shattered. They bolted into the hallway, feet slapping against the floor. Behind them came the howling, echoing through the corridors, louder, deeper, vociferous. The scream made the walls shiver. Denny turned a corner and froze. At the far end of the hall, the air shimmered red, the mist moving against the current of the vents. Tiny droplets floated like dust motes. "The blood's airborne," Holloway gasped. "Don't breathe, don't—" The power cut. For a moment, the world was just darkness, breath, and heartbeat. Faye could hear the others fumbling, gasping for air, stifling cries. She pressed her sleeve to her mouth. The air tasted metallic, warm. Then something brushed her shoulder. A hand. Cold, shaking, Lana's voice trembling. "We have to move." Faye nodded, even as her vision blurred at the edges. They moved toward the emergency stairwell, light from a single flickering bulb ahead. Holloway reached it first, forcing it open, his voice breaking. "5th floor. If we make it there..." A scream from below cut him off, climbing the stairwell in waves. It wasn't human anymore. It was choral, hundreds of voices folding into one. Lana covered her ears. Denny dragged Faye through the door. As the stairwell sealed behind them, the lights went out again. For a moment, there was nothing. Just the sound of breathing. Then Faye whispered the word that had been clawing at her chest since the first scream. "Vociferous." And somewhere in the dark, the echo answered. The elevator shaft was sealed with steel, so they climbed. One floor at a time, through darkness that smelled of dust and blood. Their shoes left red smears on the steps. The higher they went, the warmer the air became, thick and heavy as fever breath. When they reached the pediatrics floor, the silence felt unnatural. No alarms. No screaming. Just a faint melody playing somewhere in the distance. A lullaby. It looped in soft, broken notes from a ceiling speaker. They stepped into the hall. The walls were lined with crayon drawings. Smiling suns, stick figures, crooked hearts. The kind of innocence that made the rot underneath unbearable. Faye stopped beside a mural of a family holding hands. The paint was cracked, flaking like peeling skin. Her chest ached again, heat pulsing through her veins. "You okay?" Denny whispered. She nodded, but her hand trembled against the wall. "It's fine. Just dizzy." Holloway moved past them, flashlight beam trembling across the floor. "We're close to the ventilation main. We can block it there, slow the spread." Lana followed, clutching the crowbar, every step echoing through the empty ward. They passed open doors. Small beds unmade, toys scattered. In one room, a mobile still turned lazily above a crib. Its little stars swaying through the air was still. Faye's voice came out a whisper. Someone was here. Then came the soft scuffle of movement. A small figure stood at the far end of the hall, barefoot, motionless. Its skin was pale, its clothes torn. "Hello?" Lana called out gently. "Sweetheart?" The child tilted its head, mouth twitching. Holloway froze. "Don't move," he hissed. "It's not." The child opened its mouth. The scream was so high it cut the lullaby in half. The lights exploded overhead. The walls seemed to pulse with the sound. The thing charged. Lana swung the crowbar, catching it mid-run, but it didn't fall. It shattered into motion, body twisting, bones cracking as it changed. Hands split into claws. The scream kept going, doubling, tripling, filling the corridor until Faye's ears bled. Holloway grabbed an IV stand and rammed it through the creature's chest. It shrieked once more before collapsing, twitching. For a heartbeat, none of them moved. Then Lana gasped. Blood was dripping from her arm, a deep cut she hadn't felt. Faye tore fabric from her sleeve, tried to wrap it tight. Their eyes met. Fear, exhaustion, silent understanding. Denny looked at the door ahead. We can't stay here. The group pushed through the pediatric ward, past overturned beds and silent toys, toward the emergency stairwell. Behind them, the broken speaker clicked back on. The lullaby resumed, warped and dragging. Halfway to the stairs, Faye stopped. Her reflection in a shattered window was wrong. The eyes too bright, the mouth too still. For a moment, she thought she saw another version of herself watching back. Faye? Denny's hand caught hers. She blinked. The reflection was gone. They kept moving, the lullaby echoing behind them as faint thuds rose from below. At the stairwell, Holloway turned to them. Once we hit the 5th floor, we hold. No more running. The door opened with a long metallic groan. Air rushed past them. Hot, heavy, and full of the smell of iron. As they began to climb, Lana whispered weakly, "What happens when the last floor isn't enough?" No one answered. Somewhere below, something screamed back to life. They sealed the stairwell door with anything they could find. Beds, oxygen tanks, IV poles wedged like spears. The clang of metal echoed down the empty hallway, a thin, brittle sound against the endless hum beneath the floors. When the final lock clicked, silence swallowed everything. The corridor smelled of smoke and antiseptic. Through the broken windows, dawn was still hours away, the horizon only a dull bruise of light. Faye sank against the wall, sweat cooling on her skin. Every breath came shallow now. The fever behind her eyes had settled into a pulse. Steady, hungry. She hid it. Denny crouched beside her, hand hovering near her arm, but never quite touching. "We'll get through the night," he said, though his voice broke on the last word. Holloway dragged a generator closer to the barricade. "They'll find us. The emergency teams will see the signal." Lana gave a dry laugh. "If there's anyone left to see it." They fell quiet again, listening to the faint groans of the building. Somewhere below, the creatures were moving. Slowly, deliberately, as if scenting them through the vents. Faye could hear the scream still ringing in her head, but it had changed. It sounded closer, inside. A sudden clang made them all jump. The security monitor flickered to life, static blooming across the screen. Holloway hit the console and the feed stabilized into grainy black and white corridors. Shapes moved below. Dozens, maybe more, their bodies jerking in unison, mouths open in silent roars. Lana's voice cracked. "They're coming up." Holloway stared at the monitors. They moved together now, almost organized. Faye wiped blood from her nose. "They're evolving." The doctor turned to her sharply, but before he could speak, the feed went dark. the generator sputtered. The lights blinked out. For a heartbeat, there was only their breathing. Then came the sound. The low rumble of hundreds of feet moving in rhythm, climbing. They armed themselves with what they had: crowbars, scalpels, a fire axe that Denny found wedged behind a broken cabinet. The first impact hit the barricade like thunder. The metal frame bent inward. Another strike followed, and another. Each one heavier, closer, screaming behind it. Lana pressed her back to the wall, eyes wet. If they get through... They won't, Denny said. The next blow caved part of the door. A clawed hand reached through, fingers searching. Faye swung the crowbar, shattering bone. The hand withdrew, replaced by a dozen more. Holloway stumbled back toward the fuel tanks. We can ignite the floor, burn them before they breach. Faye caught his wrist. You'll die. He smiled faintly. Then maybe the noise will stop. He turned the valve. Gas hissed into the air. The smell hit them immediately. Sharp, sweet, final. Go, he said. Faye pulled Lana toward the opposite stairwell. Denny hesitated, meeting the doctor's eyes for one last second. Then they ran. Behind them, the world exploded. Fire roared down the hall, swallowing screams, walls, and light. The shockwave threw them into the stairwell, heat licking at their backs. When the sound finally died, the building groaned like a wounded thing. They crawled to the landing, coughing, soot covering their faces. The hallway beyond was a smear of flame. Lana's hand slipped from Faye's grasp. She looked down and saw the blood spreading through the bandage on the woman's arm. Lana smiled weakly. Guess I'm next. Faye wanted to speak, but no words came. The nurse leaned back, eyes closing. The last breath she gave was quiet, almost peaceful. Faye held her for a moment, then rose. Her reflection in the metal wall glimmered. Eyes faintly golden, veins darkening. Denny's voice was low. We have to move. Roof access. She nodded. Together they stepped over the bodies and into the smoke, the hospital trembling beneath them like a living thing. The stairwell climbed forever. Each step echoed like a countdown. Faye's blood pulsed in her ears, hot and uneven. Every breath scraped her throat, raw. Denny moved ahead, flashlight shaking in his grip, the beam catching patches of peeling paint and ash. Behind them, the lower floors still burned. Firelight flashing through the cracks like the building was breathing in flame. Somewhere far below, the creatures screamed. Fewer now, but deeper. They reached the final landing. A door marked roof access hung crooked on its hinges. Denny pushed. It gave with a screech. Cold air rushed in, thick with smoke and morning fog. The city beyond was silent, the horizon bruised red where the sun tried to rise. Faye stumbled forward, her knees weak. She could smell the ocean from somewhere beyond the ruins, faint and strange. The wind tugged at her hospital gown, dried blood flaking from her arm. Denny caught her before she fell. Hey, we made it, okay? We're out. She looked at him, lips cracked, eyes dull gold in the dawn. Out, she echoed. The word didn't feel real. They crossed the roof, stepping over fallen debris and torn cables. A single helicopter pad waited, slick with rain and ash. The wind whipped through the antennae above, moaning like the walls below. Faye turned in a slow circle. The hospital lights flickered faintly through the smoke. Somewhere inside, something still moved. Ryder's voice broke the quiet. He'd been silent for hours, trudging behind them, eyes hollow. They said if we make it to dawn, help would come. Denny looked up, scanning the sky. Then where is it? Faye's hand went to her chest. Her pulse was wrong again. Too fast, too loud. It felt like the scream had found a home inside her, waiting. She closed her eyes and listened. At first, only wind, then faintly through the vents below, breathing, dozens of lungs drawing in air together. Her skin crawled. They're still alive. Ryder stepped to the edge of the roof, staring down into the smoke. Maybe we all are. Maybe that's the problem. The intercom crackled one last time, broken and distant.
Dawn Protocol initiated. All subjects contained.
Contained. Not saved. The word sank into them like ice. Faye swayed on her feet. Denny reached for her, but she was already stepping back, the wind catching her hair. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. "They're calling us." Her reflection shimmered in the wet surface of the helipad. Eyes burning gold, veins dark and alive. Denny shook his head. "No, no, don't." She smiled faintly, tears streaking through soot. Maybe it doesn't end. Maybe it just changes. From below, the screams rose again. Familiar, rhythmic, all voices folding into one vast, endless sound. The word pulsed through the air like a heartbeat. Vociferous. Faye looked toward the horizon. "It's already spreading," she said softly. Then the sky turned white. The smoke rolled across the roof, swallowing the last silhouettes of the survivors. Somewhere beneath the ashes, the hospital sighed, as though exhaling a secret it could finally keep. The sirens never stopped. They just changed tone. Long, low, and human.